You open the fridge, there's nothing there. So what's it gonna be? Greasy pizza? Sad drive-thru burgers? Dish by Blue Apron is for nights like that. These are the pre-made meals of your dreams. At least 20 grams of protein, no artificial flavors or colors, no chopping, no cleanup, no guilt. Keep the flavor, ditch the subscription. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
Greetings, everybody. So now we get back to the good stuff once more, with FPL returning after a weekend off as the second of 3 international breaks this side of Christmas passes us by. And it's been a fairly quiet one, thankfully, unless you're an Alderete owner, of course. Fresh from that weekend without Red Arrows, and fresh from our great analytics chat with Simon last week. We're here to preview the upcoming Game Week 8 as normal service resumes. Joined by Sam, whose wildcard is very much active, been in Tinkertown all week, I'm assuming, stress testing, modelling, all these sorts of things. You're right, mate. Did you have a good weekend off without fantasy football?
Yeah, good. I did manage to switch off from FPL over the weekend. I thought it was only the right thing to do considering we've got the international break. But yeah, I've had quite a fun couple of weeks, or week and a bit so far, fiddling around with wildcards and sexy spreadsheets and all of that. So yeah, it's my favorite part of FPL, all of the planning that builds up to a complete disappointment after the wildcard button is actually pressed. But fingers crossed, it all goes well. And for once, the wildcard actually goes as well as I'm kind of hoping it will do. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying the ride so far. And you mentioned the podcast last week. I really enjoyed that with Simon. If you have had a week away from FPL and you haven't checked that out yet, I would highly recommend you do so. He was great value for money as always. And I really enjoyed being a bit of a fly on the wall for some of his analytical takes once again. We'll definitely be getting him on the pod again very soon, I'm sure. On today's agenda, of course, we are Who Got the Assist. Game Week 7, we'll quickly review how we did. It feels like a little while ago now, so we'll remind everyone. And of course, we've got a little Tom confession that needs to be made with Game Week 7 in mind. We'll be running through the international break news and injuries and all of our views from that. Form versus fixtures makes a return once more with lots of swing team players picked out in particular. 1 week punts and captaincy as always. And then finally, we'll be having a deeper look at our teams. Of course, I'm on wildcard, so we'll probably spend a little while longer than usual just having a look at that wildcard team. It is Tuesday, the 14th of October. England are 3-0 up in the background at halftime against Latvia. So qualification looks pretty much nailed on. Fingers crossed for no injuries in the second half, but all clear so far, I think. First off, shall we have a look at how we got on in Game Week 7, if you want to cast your mind back that far, Tom?
Yeah, it feels like a long time ago, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, so I got 69, always a cause celebration, but it didn't come cheaply, to extend the metaphor. After swearing blind, I wouldn't make a move last week. Guess what? A voice note dropped on your phone about 5 p.m, didn't it, Sam? You started giggling. So I didn't die to Romero, and I bought Gordon and Rodon. I really thought, and still believe, that Gordon could spike versus Forest, and also on pens it seems. Si Bibby, Planet FPL also thinks he is, and Rodon was a good ancillary pickup for this week versus Burnley, and maybe 9 versus West Ham. I thought I'd just correct something I wasn't too comfortable with in terms of Romero and Dyer for my wild card. My two sort of most unsatisfying wild card picks, shall we say? And I guess I thought I'd spotted an opportunity despite being committed to no transfer on the pods. And I don't know, I think it's just because I've never known to start like it, Sam. Why I felt I had to action bias myself up to try to get a differential pick or two in. But yeah, basically I can't be trusted. I can laugh about it now, but at the time I was pretty pissed off because yet again, the one move that I made outside of the template, the meta, right, selling Ndiaye for Gordon is doubly punished. So not just Ndiaye getting a penalty and scoring it, but also Gordon getting subbed off a lot earlier than I thought it'd be after 70 minutes. And then a penalty for Newcastle, which is what I bought Gordon for. So I have absolutely, definitely done something to piss off the FPL gods, mate. It's absolutely wild. I've got no idea what I've done. But yeah, 2 lost transfers now, 15 lost points through selling and die, and also benching Gabriel for Romero last week. I really, I'm going to hand you my password, right? And you can you can change my password, and you can, just keep it. Obviously, change the captain or something if that needs to be done. Not something stupid. Don't captain Raya or transfer out Raya or put Dubravka in, but just do the captain logically and then give it back to me in 3 or 4 weeks. So I think that might be what I need to do. I was considering telling my partner to do that, but I'm fairly sure she would never give me the password back. She caused me to stop playing. But yeah, no, I don't know. I've got to stop. Just doing this sort of thing to myself. So yeah, I need to find a way to hang on. I'm going out for beers on Friday night. Help. So, yeah,
that's bad.
yeah, another frustrating game week then for me in terms of kind of just those little edge pieces which you're emotionally invested in. 2 green arrows since wildcard, but still at 3 million. And as I've said, I've never really known to start like it, but I'm just going to hope that the team is still very good. Ryan and Gabriel, the back at the Arsenal double up Senesi, who went off down ton, didn't he? A change in formation, didn't get the DEFCONs for the first time this season.
Yeah, they were chasing the game, weren't they? Yeah.
That's probably what that was. Tarko did get DEFCON and also got a random bonus for the 5. Gordon, Reinders all blanked, but Semenyo on the Friday night, as we'll come on to in a minute for you, did the business for me, and obviously else. I think that's the last time I'm going to wave goodbye to those effective points. I think that's it now. I think he's just going to be wallpaper for the rest of the foreseeable time. Gyökeres still doing absolutely not very much. João Pedro again, just blowing basically, just not really the most energetic version of himself, but hopefully he will be after an international break. And Haaland obviously with the 18 pointer, which was still good because the effective ownership was fairly low given my lowly rank. But yeah, up to the lofty heights of 3.1 million thanks to my lovely 69. Yeah, what about you?
Yeah, it's a good looking team, Tom. Obviously, I think you're set up for the next few weeks very nicely, which brings me on to my side, which was not looking quite so well set up for the next few weeks. I'm down to 1.36 million, so just outside the top million by a few points. So it's not a bad start. I'm not on tilt or anything. I'm not panicking, but it did feel like after this game week in particular, I was exposed to a number of pieces of the puzzle that I felt would be very effective purchases, and I only had 1 free transfer to deal with it. And there were a few fixture swings that I wanted to deal with as well. I'll obviously go into my team now, but that is what led me to wildcarding for game week 8 rather than waiting all the way through to game week 13. I think I would have just lost way too much value in some very important picks. So I wanted to make the move, and therefore I did. 63 points from me. It wasn't as big a nightmare as I thought it would be after Friday night. So Semenyo, I remember I got into bed with Fulham 1-0 up and thinking, I only need to survive another 10, 15 minutes of this. As long as my phone doesn't notify me, I'm okay. And then a notification came. Then another one came. Yeah. And then another one came. And I was like, surely that's the full-time whistle notification. Nope, that's another Semenyo goal. So the one player that could have punished me this week in a really big way went absolutely ballistic. So Semenyo did the damage, as you know, and if any of you out there have been listening to the pod for a couple of years now, I am a massive Semenyo fanboy. I absolutely love the bloke. I think he's an incredible footballer, and it pained me every week that I didn't own him. So he is straight in on a wild card, regardless of fixtures. I just absolutely love him. But after Friday was out of the way, my team started creeping back up and making up for some of the damage. I didn't get all the way back up to almost exactly 1 million where I started the game week, but Porro getting, it was an assist. My memory really fails me after a week and a bit. Assist and DEFCON. Gabriel obviously doing very well. Tarkowski getting the 5 points as you mentioned, and then my midfielders Ovendai and Saar both getting 7 pointers helped me out a little bit. Obviously, 63 isn't a great week, but considering how bad it looked on the Friday night, and when Kudus then also went and did really well, was it the Saturday lunchtime game as well?
Yeah,
and I was just thinking every player that I'm exposed against in a big way is really doing damage this week. I was very worried that I was going to end up outside 2.5 million. But they recovered fairly well, and I went into wildcard on Friday night straight after I saw the Semenyo goals, got some price rises, and I feel much happier about life now, knowing that I'm hopefully back on the front foot.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think obviously on the Friday night it was as you always get when you've got one game in isolation, which was why the COVID era, especially when the games were drip fed, it just felt so much worse. When you've got that one thing that happens on the Friday, you almost don't want to look at live FPL, do you?
No,
I don't know. Maybe you do, just to kind of just get that masochistic sort of pain out of the way.
What it was is I knew it would be bad, and I knew it couldn't get any worse than that, given that Semenyo's ownership was the biggest exposure I had this game week. So I thought I'll look at it, and then it will be a resurrection story throughout the game week. So yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as you said to me on Sunday or on the Sunday when we were talking about the pod with Simon, like, you know, you're ecstatic to get 300k red after you know, your main threat gets 18 points. I mean that is it's not quite, you know, a miraculous resurrection, but it's still good enough. I mean, you can be all right. You've gotten away with it a little bit there, haven't you? And you mentioned Kudus as well. Like, you know, that dampened a lot of people's green arrows as well. So yeah, good all in all. And I can completely understand why you wildcarded, and we'll definitely get onto that in just a little bit. Right, so international break, obviously still games going on, and we've already had a bit of a stop press this afternoon, haven't we, for another injury. But yeah, I mean, just to catch up on a few things which are going on, just kind of some news and views, I suppose. The first one was Mr. Cole Palmer, out till November. One of my favourite phrases of the year, Kieran Gill at the Daily Mail said Palmer was out for weeks, not months, not days, but weeks, which made me laugh because it must mean 3 weeks. Otherwise, it then becomes a month, Kieran. It's a very strange thing to say. It's as if you've got no understanding of the fact that these things do bleed into each other, dude. And it reminded me a little bit of, you know, he's 28 to his 29 sort of thing.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Yeah.
Very strange thing to say. And yeah, I love the irony that news later emerged that he'd indeed actually be out until November, which is a month, until probably after this international break. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that impacts anything really for the time being, apart from maybe the fact that for us people who do look at solvers, it may stop them being hell-bent on the default setting of getting him in as soon as possible. But yeah, I mean, he's been one of those picks, Sam. Obviously, I think we both started the season with him. He's been one of those picks that maybe because he's been carrying this for a while, and obviously there's fatigue, and then he came from nothing to playing a hell of a lot of football. I don't know whether I feel like he's one of those players that is going to, obviously, we know what he can do, but it's going to take an awfully long time for either of us to really be trusting that we can, you know, rely on him in terms of being a consistent starter, right, when he is back.
I couldn't agree more. And what it reminds me of is Bukayo Saka around this time last year, when at a young age, they've played a lot of minutes. They've been very important to the team, and they've just been sort of run into the ground due to their importance to the team. And when any sort of minor thing starts cropping up, the managers, because they're so important, they keep playing them through regardless, and the minor issue becomes a slightly worse issue, and then it becomes an ongoing issue, and then they basically get to this point where they break down, and every time they take a little break, they rush them back, and it's just not as good as it was. So I think we saw that with Saka last year. Luckily, it looks like they've Arsenal, that is, have monitored him and got him back up to full fitness before playing him once again. I really hope that's what they do with Palmer, because it would be such a shame for such a young, talented footballer to have been run into the ground and just keep getting rushed back, because with an England hat on, it would be great to have him fresh for the World Cup. But from an FPL standpoint, I'd prefer to wait a month or two for him to get back to his best before just carting him out again, and then he breaks down or minutes need to be managed after another couple of game weeks because he's just still feeling something in his groin area, I believe. So yeah, I mean, by the sounds of it, they're not taking any chances. They're not going to rush him back. And even though we've heard that it's November, I still wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him until comfortably after the next international break, just so that they are on the safe side with him, because they can't afford a whole season without him, or with him as an ongoing issue. So yeah, I think it's all very positive for Enzo, basically.
Yeah, but Enzo also, in inverted commas, injured, some sort of inflammation. think he's probably fine, right? I mean, we'll talk about his underlying data in a minute. His informed versus fixtures. But yeah, you were on one of the group chats. We're both on fairly confident that that's probably just a bit of an international break, pre-arranged sort of injury thing that they're putting out, so he can just avoid meaningless friendly.
That's exactly it. I think if I can play armchair physio for a second, and obviously I reserve the right to be horrendously wrong here, but Enzo wasn't scheduled to play the friendly this week for Argentina anyway, if reports are to be believed, and there are some fairly reliable reports saying that. So, and Argentina, I was listening to the Wire, FPL Wire, that is earlier. They made a very good point that those South American teams, they usually have to make up a pretty good excuse for letting a player leave early. They can't just say, oh, well, we just can't be asked to play. You get back to the UK and back to your club team. They needed to come up with something. So what they've basically given, and I can't remember the name of the injury. It's quite I think it starts with S. It's a very weird name, but it's a short-term injury. It's one of those that if you saw it and then you Googled it, the average layoff is about 2 days. And they talked about that on, I think it was Saturday. So I would be stunned if he wasn't ready to go by the time we get to Nottingham Forest on the Saturday. So I think this actually, if anything, just makes me more keen on having him on a wild card, because some managers who aren't on a wild card won't be as tempted to go there because he's yellow flagged. There is a risk. I can take that risk knowing that I've probably got a strong enough bench that if I'm wrong on this, then I can just have someone off my bench with a reasonable fixture. But I'm still pretty confident that I'm right and that he's going to be absolutely fine, and that this is just a bit of a white lie to get him back in time and get him fit. And how do you even say that, Nikolai? Synovitis, I think it is. Yeah, that sounds about right. Go Google it yourself after this and see how long the layoff is. It's not a long one. So I think he'll be okay.
Sounds like kind of Star Trek technobabble, doesn't it? Captain, we're being attacked by a massive synovitis. What? Oh my goodness! Arm photon torpedoes. Yeah, no, I would be surprised if he doesn't play versus Forest. But I mean, let's see what the press conferences bring. Maybe we'll get a leak. Who knows? Chelsea do tend to be a bit better. If you play for Newcastle, I wouldn't believe anything that I heard from any leaker, nor the manager. But with Chelsea, and Maresca does tend to be fairly honest, doesn't he? So yeah, another sort of similar injury, Gravenberch, again probably fine. Precautionary rest, it seemed. Koeman was saying, the Netherlands manager, so I would expect him to play versus United. But if he is out, maybe if you are a Van Dijk owner, Sam, I'm thinking, do I swap over for a second Arsenal defender if he's out and the likes of McAllister have ongoing fitness issues? Maybe I'd be thinking this might be kind of a little push that I need if he's carrying something or he's got something going on, because he and obviously McAllister last year, those two were kind of the base upon which Liverpool's success was built, and both of them have got ongoing issues by the sounds of it, and it doesn't sound great. So yeah, maybe this might be kind of an excuse potentially, or kind of a little bit of a push that you need just to move over to getting Gabriel, getting Timber, getting Sleeper, whatever you want to do to get a second Arsenal defender in if you want one.
Yeah, and let's be honest, it's not like we need many excuses to have Arsenal defence at the moment. They've got great fixtures. They're at a reasonable price point. If you've got Van Dijk, I think it does make sense if you don't already have Arsenal coverage. And Gravenberch this year, I think, is almost even more important than last year, given the way that Liverpool are setting up with their attacking phases. So they're letting both fullbacks go. And in those situations, you do want someone who's happy to just sit in and provide that shield. If Gravenberch isn't there for whatever reason, and obviously we have no real reason to know whether or not he'll be fit for game week 8, hopefully it's nothing. But if he's not, then that just leaves Liverpool defence all the more get-atable, I suppose, exposed. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. What I would say though is Van Dijk, it won't be too long before players, FPL managers are looking at getting him very quickly back in around game week 12, 13. So have a plan to get back to him if you are looking at selling him now. But like you said, Tom, if Gravenberch is out for an extended period of time, that does make Liverpool defence even weaker. And they haven't looked great so far this season as it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're an interesting one, aren't they? Just in general, Liverpool at the moment. I think the fixtures obviously are mixed enough, and we've got the spectre of Mo Salah being sold. most of any player at the moment. We'll come on to that in a minute, but the fixtures are mixed enough up until game week 12, assuming that so basically after the next international break, so the next 4, that they are kind of ideally suited almost for us to kind of be able to sit back, watch, and just kind of decipher, I guess, what the key pick is going to be for that lovely run that we've signposted all the way onwards. Like, it could not have fallen at a better time for Liverpool to not really be in the meta because of all these buts that surround a lot of their players. They are very reminiscent of Man City kind of post Aguero, pre Haaland, when they're kind of an orchestra without a conductor. Salah was that conductor last year, of course, given what he was doing. But even this year, as we mentioned last week with Simon, it's just not quite happened. And it's just so fortuitous, really, that there's no. Obviously, my nice game up next is knowing Salah's record is great, right? But I don't know. It's just, I feel like it's just very fortuitous. There's going to be somebody who obviously does reap the rewards for sticking with Salah at this point. But my lord, it just feels so lucky. A very, very lucky time period to not need to worry too much about Liverpool. Although, obviously, if you feel the opportunity's there, then go for it. Next one up, Odegaard as well. Emerged that he's out until after next international break after breaking all sorts of unwanted records with 3 home games in a row being taken off for half time. I think Rice, had a bit of an injury at the end of the last game week. But Eze, the stonks for him definitely do go up. We'll speak about that one a little bit later on. Elsewhere, Haaland leaving the Norway camp early to rest. Good. That's great. Well done, Erling. I'm very happy that you did that. I saw he was playing golf yesterday. And news today, that match in South Korea for Paraguay saw the one guy that many people didn't want to be subbed off with an injury, getting subbed off with an injury. We were, of course, talking about Alderete, who went off with a muscle injury, and Sunderland's Twitter was not very happy about that because it is an unnecessary.
Yeah, it just seems so pointless, doesn't it? Like, if you're sat there with Alderete, you must be seething right now because, it's just a friendly on the other side of the world without any. I mean, I'm sure there is some logic to it. I don't know what that logic is. Someone might be able to tell me why they're playing over there in a friendly during an international break like this one, where fixtures are coming thick and fast outside of it. I just don't get it. So, one to monitor. We don't know for sure that he's even properly out yet. It looks like a muscular injury. We'll have to wait and see. Press conferences, obviously a very important one to listen into this week. But I'd be really worried and annoyed about that if I was setting up for a bench boost in game week 8, which honestly was my original plan as well. If I was looking at wildcarding in 6 or 7, I would have happily had Alderete and probably looked at bench boosting this week because it's a plum home fixture for Sunderland to keep a clean sheet. And of course, DEFCON as well. So I mean, my heart goes out to you. It's very, very unfortunate if he is indeed out, and we don't know that yet. So I don't want to just kill off all hope there, but it doesn't look great. So we'll have to wait and see.
I think that kind of just sort of slightly reinforces why I didn't like the bench boost this week. Obviously, if you are all set, then fine, go with it. But I still like the bench boost this week when we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, Sam, when you were talking about different paths you would take, just because this sort of stuff happens a lot in the international break. And you will get at least one manager in the press conferences doing the old time. I haven't seen him yet when asked about a particular player. We'll assess them in training tomorrow, and you're like, well, that's completely useless, isn't it? And that's the last thing you want when you're bench boosting, to have you want that 15 to at least get minutes, at least get starts, and it's not good. But I mean, the good news is if you've got Alderete, then I think next week is also right, isn't it, for Sunderland, or is it?
Chelsea, I think
Chelsea. Okay, maybe not then.
He'll get DEFCON.
He'll get DEFCON. There's definitely another juncture, I suppose, when I was thinking about them having an all right game. Oh, Everton in 10, maybe.
He'll
get DEFCON. He'll be all right.
He's just never going to be a terrible pick on a bench boost, regardless, unless it's like City or Liverpool away. I mean, he'll even get DEFCON in that. It's just that they might concede enough that it won't matter. I think most weeks he's fine on a bench boost, to be honest.
Just hopefully he'll be all right. Okay, all right. So on to form versus fixture this week. Quite a lot going on. As usual, we picked out kind of six key players who are either in form, in inverted commas, have good fixtures coming up, or a mixture of them both. As mentioned, I just want a quick note that Mo Salah is the top sold player, 440,000 transfers out. Semenyo is the top replacement, but many people have also, Sam, taken our advice, and have bought that Erling Haaland bloke. Seen enough, 432,000, I think it is, something like that, transferred in for Haaland. So, the paradigm is shifting towards the Haaland one rather than the Salah one. But yeah, I think let's not dwell on that, I don't think, because I think anything you can kind of figure that one out for yourself. At the top of the list here is a Big Nick. I know that he's got a different name if you're a Newcastle fan, but we'll call him Big Nick here, Nick Woltemade. Score for Germany with a shoulder, Sam, showing how clinical he is. His maiden goal against Northern Ireland. The Newcastle Chronicle, it's worth noting, expects Vissers to be back in the squad at least for the Fulham game, if not the Brighton game that's coming up. 7 shots he's had so far to flip the analogue this season thus far, all in the box. Second best mins per goal of any striker, a goal every 100.7 minutes, behind Haaland, who has a frankly ridiculous goal every 66 minutes, which is absolutely insane.
Crazy.
Woltemade, the man with the golden hair and the golden touch, rivaling Anthony Gordon for wee looking hair. I mean, is he a player in and around your wildcard drafts? I mean, he is one of those who has kind of become exceedingly popular. And you see players like, for example, João Pedro, the second most sold out. Woltemade is now the third most bought in. So I can only imagine a lot of people are going from João Pedro, Gyökeres and Richarlison, who are all the 3 strikers who are over 200k sales out, to Big Nick.
Yeah, he's in my thinking for wildcard for sure. I can't remember whether I presented him on last week's stream in my draft or not, but he's in one of the teams I'm working with at the moment. I think the question for me isn't whether it's him or João Pedro, because I want João Pedro. It's whether or not he's good enough for that price as a third striker, and whether or not there's enough value in the forwards generally to carry 3 forwards over 7 million. And if he's not on penalties whilst Gordon's on the pitch, I do have hesitations about picking him, just because some people are saying the minutes are going to be really good. I'm not that confident they are. I think he does get reduced minutes in 1 or 2 of these next block. Whether or not that comes in the league, I don't know. But we've already seen it in his first few game weeks. He has had reduced minutes. He does get brought off early. And as long as Wisser is out, almost counterintuitively, I think they're just not going to want to take too many risks with his fitness. So if he's struggling after 70, 75 minutes, has been knocked about a bit in a Premier League match that's getting a bit rough and tumble, I wouldn't be surprised to see Gordon stick it out up front for the final 20 minutes, or someone else, maybe Barnes play through the centre. Langer can do so. Is Asula still around as well, potentially? I do like him, but within the back of my mind, I am thinking I can only really bank on him for 70 minutes, and anything after that is a bit of a bonus, and I definitely can't rely on penalties. So it's one of those pure picks that before I got into FPL really heavily, I would have considered more closely as a bit of a form player. But I think the fixtures are decent. I don't know whether they're great enough that I am willing to spend 7.2 on a player with iffy minutes, not bad, but iffy, and then also potentially not penalties, at least when Gordon's on the pitch either. I'm in two minds about this, whether the value is in the third forward spot or whether I can put that value into my 5th midfielder instead.
TBD at the end of the pod, but yes, I know what you mean. At the price is kind of just a bit outside of it. Feels like kind of 0.5, 1 million too much if you do factor in all of those concerns. However, the spacing for Newcastle fixtures is fairly good. I think they don't have any sort of 3-day gaps. They're all 4, and I think that probably does lend itself to being okay. But as you said, there's lots of unknowns. Like, how does it work with Visser? What's the formation going to look like? How are those two going to work? Alongside the fact there's 4 wingers, and what idiot with them by Anthony Gordon as well within that context. We just don't know. So I can see why people are going there. Don't get me wrong. And as we've mentioned, individually, the fixtures aren't particularly great for Newcastle until kind of we hit December. I think it's Gameweek 15 and 16. They've got Burnley and Sunderland in quick succession. But over the longer run, if you look at the FDR alone, Newcastle's fixture run is pretty good, save if it's Man City in Gameweek 12, and even that's at home. So one, you could feasibly, and this was kind of, again, why I was quite drawn to Gordon, and just stick in and kind of maybe forget about, safe knowledge that the fixtures have kind of a decent gap between them. But yeah, there are quite a lot of unknowns, and it might just be the case that you're swayed away if you can do something better with the money. Which I'm sure we'll see later on, because there's lots of sort of A's and B's and kind of what about this two versus that two, which then come into the equation. But selling Gyökeres, not sure about that, to be honest. Selling João Pedro, definitely not sure about that, to be honest. Selling Richarlison, fine. I can if you already own João Pedro, already own Haaland, and Richarlison's your third forward. I mean, that's the punt spot that you're playing with, really. So I can get it. If I can understand that. If you said to me, right, I've got Richarlison, I bought Woltemade, I'm not going to be like, whoa, hold up, give me your phone. I'm going to be like, yeah, okay, I can completely get that. I'm not going to be pushing you in any other direction apart from maybe one of the West Ham forwards we'll speak about later on, or the West Ham forward. Next up, though, Mohamed Kudus scored for Ghana as a qualifier for the World Cup. Pure form, I think, this one. I'm not sure if the engaged crowd, especially going there, especially because the long-term fixture on isn't incredible. Deflected strike last week rather than a clinical finish for his first goal for Spurs. It's not one where he's got himself into a one-on-one situation through clever movement and finish with aplomb, though, as deflected strike. In the analog stats, I had looked at this earlier on, Sam, a super creative profile, third for pass into the box, fourth for chances created, chance created every half up when near enough, and he's made the most crosses of any mids, of any mids. Which I thought was quite interesting. He's got the most assists this year, I think, with 4 or equal first at least. An interesting kind of character. I know that the likes of FPL General with happy owners, and I think he could feasibly kind of stick around. If it's 300k, and James McPlanet is always saying, he is kind of pretty much the main man at the moment at Spurs. Like, everything kind of goes through him, and he's sort of the main sort of creative outlet. With kind of likes of Xavi still feeling their way in. Long-term run for Spurs is all right. The next 4 before the next international break: Villa, Everton, Chelsea, and Man United. Three of those 4 are at home. But I don't know. I don't know. It's again one of those, like you mentioned earlier on. If you were kind of pre this level of depth in the rabbit hole, you may be thinking, yeah, you know what, he's done a lot of points. I've got a midfielder to sell. I'll just get this guy. I've got Semenyo. I'll just get this guy. I think a lot of people are selling Grealish because he's obviously eligible to face City this week. I mean, he's done all right, hasn't he, Kudus? Despite us both being, I think he was in and out of our Game 1 drafts, but never really looked at it recently.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he was never really in my thinking for Game Week 1 either. And it's only in the most recent match where he started coming inside a little bit more centrally to get some shots away that I was a bit more impressed with him as an FPL pick. He has been ticking over with assists, but you mentioned the most crosses in the league. And I think that is something that tracks with what my perspective or what my view on Kudus is as a player. He's quite a classic wide winger. And if Thomas Frank can kind of Burmo-eyes him and get him playing more centrally with a 5-3-2 kind of formation, I think he turns to gold dust, and he's a very good pick. But look, honestly, if you've got him so far, 33% of the game it's the easiest hold in the world. You're not scared of Aston Villa or Everton or particularly Chelsea either right now, let alone Man United after that. But if you're looking at buying someone around this price point right now, I'd argue Enzo's a better purchase with better fixtures and likely penalties. You've also got Ismail Assar with better underlying data, much more heavily skewed towards goal threat, and he's playing more centrally. And then you've got some cheaper picks as well who are good on the DEFCON. And like I said, Kudus, easy hold, but I think given the underlying data, he's massively overperforming it at the moment, and given the fixtures, and we didn't even mention the fact that Arsenal and Newcastle both away from home shortly after the next 3. I think in 5 and 7 game weeks respectively, they've got those 2 tough away fixtures. As a block, it's not looking too great, so I would probably just leave that one to one side for now.
Yeah, no, so 10th for underlying data, so it's not bad at all. I think it's kind of evenly, from my memory, evenly distributed. It's 3.1, I think it is overall.
It is, but he's got 6 attacking returns, so it's heavily overperforming.
He is. It's evenly distributed as well between assists and XG as well, I was going to say.
Sorry.
It's the assists and it's better the XG. So it's not like it's kind of one of those where it's all straight into the XG, like XA, sorry, like a Grealish. Like he is taking shots. It's just they're not particularly good quality shots. And you're right in terms of overperforming on the assists, but I think expected assists is probably not something that it's kind of, that's why I did the analog data there, because it gives a bit of color to the expected assist stuff, because it's more subjective, that one, I suppose, than the expected goals. But yeah, we're not going to get into that here. Speaking of doing well in the underlying data, Enzo Fernandez, he is second. The second week he's appeared in this, and the second week he is second for expected non-pen expected goals and assists, so expected goal involvement. Second to Erling Haaland, who obviously has 5 more non-pen expected goal involvements than him. Underlying remains good, and as we mentioned earlier on, with Palmer being out, the role on field should be secure until Palmer is back. I do have to mention Ismaila Sarr here, though, Sam, very quickly, who I'm really hoping is staying in your wildcard, because I mean, I was just kind of having a cursory glance earlier on when I was doing the prep, and Ismaila Sarr's 4th for non-pen XGI per 90. It's like 0.7. Like, that's wild. In terms of kind of the amount of minutes he's played. I mean, he did miss a few games, but doing really, really well. Going back to Mr. Enzo, he's equal to Minte on 0.55 per 90, but it is quite a noisy thing at the moment. So he's below Beto, Gakpo, Pino, Murphy. All of these players have minutes caveats, so it's a little bit noisy. But yeah, second most big chances of any mid in the analog data. He's got 6 behind Semenyo on 7, which I think is probably the biggest indicator, Sam, that he's got this sort of different box-to-box midfielder role in Football Manager parlance, especially with Palmer out.
Yeah, good reference to Football Manager on the week that hopefully the beta launches, fingers crossed. Anyway, back to FPL. Yeah, it's an interesting one on Enzo. He is now locked on my wildcard. I'd be very surprised if I went without him, given the Palmer news, and all of the points you mentioned there are completely correct. The only thing I almost want to mention, just for balance, is his shot count isn't that high. It's very heavily distributed towards big chances, which I'm not sure whether that's a really positive thing or quite a negative thing. I guess it's just perspective and the way you frame that. But basically, he's not having a ton of shots, but the shots he is having are huge chances. I think that's fine at 6.7 million, especially if he's on penalties and getting those minutes as well. So yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with that point. I'm not saying that to put anyone off. It's just something I found relatively interesting, that the shot count isn't as high as maybe you'd expect someone to have, given the amount of big chances he's had so far. But yeah, under 7 million with those fixtures, absolutely incredible fixtures for the next block of 5, and playing in a more advanced role. Yeah, sign me up. I'm absolutely locked in on him.
Yeah. I think it's just 5 last year, for example. It's such good value then. I think it's only kind of doubled up now. I'm doing all right in the DEFCONs as well. Not having many shots is one thing. Did you know that Eze has the most shots of any mid, equal with Bumo and Semenyo? Yeah,
interesting.
It's quite a lot, isn't it? He's taken shots the 3rd most. Obviously, some of that data does also include his one game at Palace. But yeah, I mean, there's 1.8 non-pen XGI, it's kind of 40-ish. But you'd imagine over the next few, he is going to get a lot more game time without Mr. Odegaard hanging around. And obviously, just such a joyful player is Mr. Eze.
Yeah.
I just would not say no to anybody who wants to go there. If that's kind of if you kind of think, all right, I'm going to go without Saka and kind of, I don't know, invest money in different players, and kind of you want to scrimp on the 3rd Arsenal, then sure, why not? I don't hate it at all. I suppose the issue really is our ludicrous depth for FPL managers, because Zubimendi wasn't in the starting 11 for the last game. He came on at 29 minutes after Odegaard came off, and the Burnley game and the Sunderland game are coming up, right? But I don't know whether they're going to be those sorts of games where you just think, oh, there's a tiny bit of danger potentially. I mean, admittedly, the games that do frame that, it's Slavia Prague in the Champions League. So it's probably not too worrying that. There's also an EFL Cup round of 16 against Brighton on the 29th, when we play Burnley on the 1st. But I don't really mind Eze. And if Rice is fit as well, I just want to say that Rice is probably I almost prefer him to Eze, just because I don't know, I can't give any guarantees of any player. But Rice feels like if he is fit and fine, the one that I would kind of just throw my weight behind and say, yeah, okay, he's more likely to play the most minutes, and he's on set pieces, is kind of producing, and with Zubimendi there, is playing that sort of attacking 8 role. Two very good sort of mid-price Arsenal assets there. I just wish we could have 4 almost, because one of those 2 would be in alongside a Saka/Gyökeres, who I'm stuck with, and the double defence.
Yeah, I wish we all moved early on Eze before he'd signed off for Arsenal and we could have 4 in our teams. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a matter of potentially no room at the inn for Arsenal assets. There are just so many good ones out there right now. I like you just said, 4 would be lovely. Even 5 would be arguably quite a nice idea right now. I don't mind Rice either. I think him and Eze are fairly close in my thinking. That 1 million can go pretty far in a wildcard draft, and Rice does have good minutes. He's got a hell of a free kick on him, and he's got set pieces or corners from one side, which we know does carry significant chances of assists for a team like Arsenal. But Eze has looked fantastic playing through the centre recently. He's been getting shots away. Unlucky not to score in I think it was game week 7, where he had a few shots from just around the outside of the box or just inside the centre of the area. So yeah, I do really like him. I just think I prefer double defence, and then Saka. Saka's more of a price point thing for me because I do want an easier route to getting to Salah later on if I want to. Whereas if I go with Eze, I probably don't have any midfielders above 8 million, and that it looks quite nice for now. But I think later on down the line that might be a slight mistake. But in isolation as a pick, he's great. I would have no qualms with anyone having him.
No, I wouldn't either. No, love the man. Starting a little midi swing over the next 4, Jared Bowen at West Ham, down 0.3. Visual FPL tweeting, I can't believe he's been overlooked. Well, it's probably been overlooked because you classified him as a forward, lads. But yeah, 35 points for him, 1.7 non-pen XGI so far. 4th for goal attempts amongst forwards, 3rd for shots on target amongst forwards. He's received the most passes of any forward, but he's got no big chances this year at all, Sam, whatever that's worth. Created 2 big chances though. The talisman, isn't it? But yeah, I suppose kind of him and more widely about West Ham, as news that Nuno in a friendly played with 5 at the back. So potentially, if we do care about attacking fullbacks anymore, Diouf, you did get DEFCONs, but it was against Arsenal, could be of interest. But Kilman at 4.4, whatever, slightly distressed asset. And there's also Paquetá still hanging around, but I'm yet to be convinced he's anything but an algo fart. So we'll need to see about that. But yeah, Bowen, I suppose, probably the one if you're looking for kind of the talisman from West Ham. But there are a few sort of edge piece options in there. I'm obviously jesting about Paquetá. I can see why people might want to go there.
Yeah, I think with Paquetá, the appeal is he's 5.9 million, and he's basically baby Bruno, which a few people have started coining him as. Like, he does get DEFCONs every now and then. He does get a little bit of attacking, like open play threat, and then he's on penalties too. So yeah, he's all right. He was in and around my thinking for wildcard, but I don't think I'm going to go with him. I also don't think the fixtures are quite as good as they might look when you first view them on the ticker. They're all right, but Leeds away from home, who have actually been a pretty fantastic defense, with I think aside from 1 or 2 fixtures this season, they've kept under 1 XGC in 5 of their 7 matches, I think it is. So I don't love that as a fixture. Newcastle at home is a tough fixture, and then I think it's Burnley and Brentford either side of those in game week 11 and then game week 8 for Brentford respectively. So I think by the time you get to like game week 11 or 12, you're probably going to want to get rid of them anyway. Don't get me wrong, Bowen is one of those picks that at the end of last season, I wrote down a little note as like, these picks are never going to be a bad pick. If you're ever in a crisis, you don't know who to go for one of these. Bowen was right at the top of the list. So he is just going to tick along with a goal every other game or an attacking return every other game throughout the course of the season. 20 returns, take that to the bank. At under 8 million, you're laughing. But I'll reiterate my point earlier on Woltemade. I can't really see myself going without Haaland and João Pedro. So is it worth going with a 7.7 million third forward who isn't on penalties when there's quite a lot of value in the midfield? I don't hate it, but I haven't been able to find a draft in my own situation with him in it. And I certainly wouldn't be selling the likes of João Pedro to get to him. So I don't really know where he fits into most people's plans right now. He might just be one that a lot of us miss out on.
Yeah, and to be fair, when you wrote that last year, you didn't know he'd be a forward, did you?
I didn't know. Very good point.
That's
Yeah.
probably the fly in the ointment for that one. But yeah, no, completely fair points. Last one.
Go on.
Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So, yeah, the 1.8 overall for non-pen SGI, better than Jared Bowen, and better than Woltemade. Equal
Essential.
third
Bye.
shots on target amongst forwards, level with Bowen. Fourth for big chances as well, level with Thiago and Welbeck. He's had more big chances than the likes of Ekatike and Watkins. Sorry, analytics people, you just go and find a tick bucket and throw up into it. So he's getting into good positions, and that's reassuring. He created the third most chances as well amongst forwards, most fast into the box and things like that. So he's creative as well. Yeah. But I mean, obviously, he is an eighth attacker, and we don't need to give anyone chapter and verse on the fact that this is not, going to be the be all and end all. But he does definitely spark some fairly strong opinions. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the best experience, was it, last time, Sam? But I don't know. You said you were maybe open to giving him another chance on last week's pods. Any thoughts on that
Simon's
one?
a very convincing man. Yeah, I remember went into that pod thinking, just don't let him get in your head about DCL. And what does he do? He gets in my head. Look, DCL, everyone has very strong opinions about him. And this has just been massively overblown. He's your eighth attacker. You're never going to play him. The only situation I can envisage anyone ever picking him is if you've still got a bench boost left to play and you don't want a really cheap midfielder instead, because there are basically just lots of midfielders that you like. So in my two current drafts right now, one has a cheap forward and one has a cheap midfielder. I prefer the one with the cheap forward because I don't think there's as much value in the forward line. And I think the money can go to better use in the midfield. And unfortunately, if I had a little bit more money, then I would be very open to more expensive strikers instead. But he's just the best of a bad bunch. He's getting minutes. He's on penalties, we think. The data's not terrible. I know he massively, massively underperforms it. But I'm not even saying I'm definitely picking him. But on a bench boost, if I'm looking at doing it in game week 9, he's got West Ham at home, and then I can bin him after that and never even think about him again. Whereas with a fifth midfielder, like a Longstaff who I don't hate, or a Xhaka, or maybe a Dewsbury Hall as well, I don't think I'm going to then sell them directly after that. They probably sit there and then rot on my bench for a few weeks, but then I've still got 0.5 to 0.6 value just every single week on my bench, when I think all of those pennies are going to really add up by the time I want to get back to Salah in game week 12. Whereas with Calvert-Lewin, it's almost, I hate him enough that I'll just play him for a couple of weeks and then I will just immediately want to get rid of him. And it's not like he's incapable of scoring a goal, especially if he's on penalties. Every manager who is even considering him knows he's awful. No one's under any illusions. But can he physically score a Premier League goal? Well, we've already seen him do so this year, and he's done so in the past. So just try and spike a bit of variance, a bit of luck in one of these two next weeks, and then just get rid. And just don't ever start him ever again if you have to hold on to him for a little while. But yeah, look, I don't like him. I don't even really want to tolerate him, to be honest. And coming on to my wildcard draft later, I'm tempted to just burn the spot and forget about my bench boost altogether, just to save myself from all of the abuse I'm going to get if I go for him, because I think that the pile-on is going to be worse than the perspective of like, oh, well, I'm just going with an awful forward. I think I'd hate the fact that everyone thinks I'm just doing it because models say he's really good. Like, that just puts me off of him altogether. So yeah, rant over. We'll come back onto him later with my drafts. But yeah, that's my take on him.
Yeah. Like, if Lyle Foster hadn't withdrawal
Yes.
from South Africa squad injured, then I'd just say get Al
Yeah.
Foster 0.5 less with Leeds and Wolves next 2.
$1,000,000%. That was going to be my get out of jail free card, and it's gone. So
Yep.
yeah,
It
I'm
is
happy.
Gonzo. What are you going to do? Get Tolu Orokodere at Wolves, who's got Burnley in game week 9. I mean, he started the last 2. No, he hasn't. He's because Mr. Strand Larsen's back. So I mean,
Yeah. If I had 0.9 spare, I'd have Strand Larsen, probably. Like, fine. He's got decent enough fixtures next to.
yeah, and it is a difficult situation if you're in that one. If you judge that the best for you is to have the setup with the third forward being a 5.5, and your only option is Cavalier. It's kind of like if you were repopulating the world after a nuclear disaster and it's just you and somebody you didn't find particularly attractive. I mean, you still got to do it, haven't you? So at the end of the day, that's kind of the zero sum game that we're at with Calvert-Lewin in your situation, Sam. I think for some it's easy because you're like, oh, if I was wildcarding this week, this is what I do. The problem is that you've actually got to do it.
Yeah.
So it feels a lot worse for you. But yeah, I think, as much as I would have appealed to your emotive side and said, think about what happened last year, don't do it to yourself. I do understand what you're saying. I've always understood what you're saying when it comes to Calvert-Lewin. I do think maybe Simon was playing devil's advocate to some extent. Even he can't be that Leeds blind. Actually, no, he probably can. But, you're probably going to be playing him in one game, aren't you? Maybe against Burnley. You're going to be playing him in one game. If you can kind of just, and then you'll deal with it. Limits the exposure, doesn't it? Enough, probably. But you're going to have 2 points.
Yeah.
But it's not even that there's another 5.5 or below forward who's playing. That's the
problem. If there was, I'd pick him. It's that simple. There's just no one. If I knew GU was going to play one of the next 2, I'd probably just go with him. But we don't. There's no one. So it's Foster who's potentially injured, Calvert-Lewin, or if I can find 0.6, maybe Thiago. But Thiago has Liverpool in game week 9, and he's not got great minutes either. So I just don't know.
Yeah, it's almost like, I don't know. We'll talk about this later. We'll talk about this in not very long, but it does feel like you're sort of, by process of elimination, you've chosen Calvert-Lewin, and it's something that no one's happy with. No one wants it, but it's like, in the playground. All right, I suppose you have to join our team because there's no one else left, and we can't send you back in to play board games because it's a nice sunny day and we need 11 people in our football team. That was me, people. That was me. Right. Okay.
Sorry, one final point on Calvert-Lewin.
Oh, no.
It makes it so much funnier for me in my situation. I was also looking at bench boosting game week 11 just as a backup in case game week 9 I get an injury or 2. He's got Nottingham Forest away that week, so he even suits that. It's just, I just can't believe it. Out of all the players, I wish they had different fixtures, so I wasn't even considering it. But there you go. Anyway, move on.
It's both the players you've had history with. You've kind of been burnt by Semenyo on the week before you were probably going to bring him in, and you're actively then bringing in your bet noir in Calvert-Lewin. But I mean, we shall see. Hopefully, I can in a totally unbiased way steer you towards the one that he's not in. Because
maybe.
I can only imagine, you said the people are going to be piling on you, but would you be piling on yourself if you end up with Calvert-Lewin in 2 weeks' time? Oh, dear. Right, okay. God, you haven't put Calvert-Lewin as your 1 week punt as well, have you?
No, I was so tempted to do it.
Oh, I was so tempted.
I just thought, you know what, this whole pod's going to end up talking about a 5.5 million forward if I do that. So no, I didn't go with Calvert-Lewin. I was so tempted to do it. I did have a bit of a chuckle, but no, I've gone with Joe Rodon instead. I think he scored for Wales over the international break as well. He's got a bit of goal threat, and not bad on the old DEFCONs. Good fixture this week, and Leeds, even away from home. I know it's Burnley, but away from home have a 36% chance of a clean sheet. That's pretty good. And if you look at all of the modelling, they are, I think, 6th in terms of the expected clean sheets over the next 5 game weeks. That's pretty good, especially for a 4 million defender like Rodon. So yeah, I again had seen who you'd picked, and I was like, yeah, if you're going to go for a cheap defender, I'm going to go for a cheap defender. So Rodon's in for me. What about you?
Yeah, so a big Dan Ballard for me. Hoping that he repeats
Love
his
it.
game at 1 heroics. Should be good for Defcons in the mix for a clean sheet. He scored for Northern Ireland as well, I believe. And a bit of a beast in the air, basically. So again, chase a 17 pointer. All that time last week, I went for Eze, got 6, taking me up to 31. And Ollie Watkins did Ollie Watkins thing, sadly.
Yeah.
I think he was an injury actually we forgot to mention because we forgot about him. Yeah, he's in. I think he collided with a post, didn't he? Yes, it sums up his season. Unfortunately, get better soon, Ollie. With the 2 points last week, so it's 31-19. And yeah, not insurmountable. The Rodon 17 pointer. I'm playing him this week. I take it. I'm very happy with it. Yeah, good pick. A fun week where we're both picking the kind of newly promoted centre backs. Right.
It's funny that we're in a world now where it's like, yeah, you're picking the centre backs that get DEFCON because that could be where you get the biggest haul. Like, whereas with a striker or a midfielder, you're like, yeah, but the upside's not quite there, is it? Unless they score a couple of goals. With a defender now, it's like, yeah, 17 pointer, easy, no question.
Right. Okay. I suppose we've got to do this, the captaincy. Right. So, Haaland, probably Salah because of the historic record against Man United. He's at home against them rather than the way that the graphic suggests. And I've just put João Pedro there as like a stalking horse, a Saka, another. But given the state of the game at the moment, unless you're playing a challenge like FPL General, is anyone really on anything other than Erling Haaland? Probably not. I don't want to be dismissive, but at the end of the day, I think I want to spend time on your wildcards for the rest of this show. So I think leave it at that, right? Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's Haaland. If I had Salah, I'd be tempted, I guess, because it is a great fixture for him historically. And surely it's only a matter of time before they come good and they really start to tick. But I do worry about his goal share in that team a little bit. I wonder proportionally whether or not he matches up to the kind of goal distribution he used to get in a Liverpool shirt. So, I mean, it's Haaland, isn't it? Like, it just is. If for whatever reason you're persevering without him and you've got Salah, he's great this week. It's a good captaincy shout, but it's Haaland.
Yeah, done. All right, on to our teams. Me, Tom, Roll, don't be a prat. All looking very good for me at the moment. Don't have much to add. Double Arsenal defence against Fulham. That's might concede, who knows. Rodon for his 18-pointer. Senasai, he's going to get 18 points. I don't know how he's just going to do it. Senasai at the back. In midfield, Gordon, who I'm going to have to just keep now. Sunk costs, leave him there, see what happens until I get bored of him next week and sell him. Right, Reinders, Bruno and Semenyo. Up front, João Pedro, Haaland captain, and Gyökeres, who's going to stick around for me, I think, until at least after the international and up until the international break with Burnley and Sunderland coming. And then, the bench picks itself. So Anderson, Tarko, and both have Arsenal and Man City, respectively. And then Josh King, the bench guy. So, yeah, that's that for me. On to you, though, because that's what we're here to see. Let's have a look at that wild card then. How many potential drafts have you thrown in here?
I've put in 3, but there's only a couple of changes with any of them. I think 2 changes in each of them. So it's basically an ABC, and I couldn't work out a quicker way of doing it. So this is the draft that I'm currently toying with, and I haven't really moved away from either draft A or B. So draft A is the one without Calvert-Lewin. I'll read through the 15. Pope, Dubravka, I'm pretty certain on those 2. I hear all of the things about fixtures for Pope, but his underlying BPS is very, very good. I just can't really get on board with Raya at 5.7 million now. I have got him in my current team because I caught him before the price rise. So if I did change my mind, I've still got the option to get him a little bit cheaper. But I think there's more value in Pope, and the fixtures up until my second wild card are looking pretty great as a block. So Pope's in for me, and he will sneak the odd bonus point, and I think the upside is there versus Raya, who's 2 or 6. Completely understand Raya as a pick, though. I don't dislike him. What I do think, though, is that there's more upside with Timber, and I'm willing to take a risk on one benching in the next block if I have to. I actually think he'll probably start all of them because it's just so important for Arsenal not to drop any points now. They're absolutely gunning it for the league. This is the year, or at least it feels like it, with Liverpool stuttering a little bit and Man City not quite at full power yet. It seems like an opportunity, and Ben White's just not been anywhere near the quality that they need at right back to displace Timber yet. So he might get the odd minute, odd early substitution for Timber, but he's just playing so advanced. I don't want to go without him. I think that's an opportunity I just want to take a chance on. Gabriel is a lock, of course. Senesi and Anderson, both. In fact, my back five, I think, are pretty much locked in at this point. Anderson is a great long-term hold, great on the DEFCONs, and after the next two fixtures, really good. Rodon, I said it last week, very encouraged by Leeds' defence, and he's basically as cheap as it gets, with a good couple of fixtures with bench boost in mind in either 9 or 11. And Senesi as well. Sure, don't love the next few fixtures, and if I wasn't on a wild card, I might not buy him immediately. But since I am, and I can have exactly the 15 I want, he's a player I will be wanting over the long term and will want for the rest of the season probably. So I'm happy to take an average couple of fixtures, bench him in 1 or 2 of them, and then I've got him for the remainder, I hope. Into midfield, I think 4 out of 5 places are pretty much locked in now. Saka, Sarr, Enzo, Semenyo. Saka's the one that I guess could have come out, and I could have messed around with maybe a combination of Bruno with Eze or Bruno with Gyökeres somehow, but I've landed on Saka. First choice penalty taker, it looks like. The minutes are looking encouraging and great open play threat as well. So yeah, that I'm going with him. Sarr, Enzo, Semenyo are absolutely locked. Haven't even hesitated for a second on Semenyo or Sarr. Enzo has come in since I heard the Palmer news. And then this is my 3-4-3 draft with Longstaff as my 5th midfielder, which I don't love because I do think there's a lot more value to be had in midfield. But of those picks, and because I've got the exact funds to do it, I can't go with a Xhaka or a Dewsbury Hall or a Stack whose minutes look a bit shaky now anyway. But Longstaff, I actually really like at 4.9 million. He's on set pieces. He's taken them away from Stack by the looks of it. Decent open play threat, as we saw at Newcastle. And he's creating a fair few chances for Leeds. I think Leeds fans are pretty encouraged too. So I do like Longstaff. I'm just not sure I like him enough to hold on to him long term. And I want to burn the 8th attacker spot soon if I bench boost. And I don't know whether I'm going to see enough value in selling Longstaff after a few game weeks to a 4.5. Because again, I do think there's at least 5 valuable midfielders I want in my draft and long term. So I don't want to kill that spot off. In my forward line, I've currently got Haaland, João Pedro, both absolutely locked in. And then Woltemade is that last pick. I'm really like, it's that third forward spot for me and that 5th midfielder. Those are the 2 places that can change at this point. I'd be surprised if I change too much else. So draft number 1 is Woltemade, who I've obviously referenced my hesitations with earlier with Longstaff. Draft number 2 is I upgrade that 5th midfield spot to Ndai. I could upgrade it to Minter, Paqueta. I think I'm currently favouring the penalty taker with Ndai, but it could easily end up with Minter, who's obviously got great open play threat. And then that would mean downgrading Woltemade to Calvert-Lewin. As much as I hate it, just with bench boost in mind, and then I'll get rid of him and burn the spot to a Mark Giu or an Obi, so I don't lock myself out of triple Chelsea. Or I just immediately burn the spot and don't take all of the hate that I'm going to get if I go with Calvert-Lewin, and give myself a 1 point something million to play with in the next few game weeks. A bit of an easier route to Salah with that money in the bank, and look at bench boosting around game week 17 with sort of a rough outline to use those 5 free transfers to get there later on down the line. Final quick combination I'll just very quickly reference. I do technically have the money to get Thiago instead of Calvert-Lewin, but I'd have to go with Minter in my midfield instead of Ndai. So those are the 3 options. I think 13 of the 15 are pretty much there. And I think the draft I'm on at the moment is annoyingly the one with Ndai and Calvert-Lewin, but yeah. I don't like it. I don't like that third forward spot whatsoever. Taught me out of it. Tell me what to do. Help.
I prefer I prefer the one with Longstaff. Not even
Yeah.
just because of not even because of the Calvert-Lewin factor. I just think that that's like I feel like the built-in assumption is that you're going to want Salah back. That feels like kind of where you've landed, in terms of what's or at least what's kind of like the kind of the driving force that's hanging over a bit of decision making. What I would say is that we don't know what the situation is going to be. It could be that we get to game week 12, get to game week 13, and we think, well, oh my lord, no, I really need to get Isaac in. I mean, are we betting against that Isaac's going to be, rubbish for the rest of the year? Is he going to be in crisis for the rest of the year? I mean, Liverpool. I mean, yeah, they're the club in crisis at the moment, right? But we've got 4 good games to have a look at it. During that time, you will be rolling transfers, and if you're playing, almost you, with your depth. I mean, yeah, you may need to kind of, if you don't bench boost now, as we've spoken about before, you may need to leave it then until after we get the 5 frees. But you've got the depth to roll the transfers, right? And you've got a decent amount of time before you need to decide. I don't think it's incumbent on you at the moment to try to factor in how the hell you get to Salah in game week 12, because you simply don't know whether that's going to be the optimum move or that's going to be how you're going to feel in game week 12. With Liverpool, it is genuinely an unknown. And I think that because you've got Woltemade, you've got a few buts about him at the moment, but I think that he's going to be quite a good option for the next period. The next 4 are quite good in this little block of games, and in game week 9 it's Fulham at home, who are incredibly inconsistent, as I was saying just now in the chat with Nobby, despite the fact that you've got Anderson. Fair enough. I mean, could get DEFCONs, but I think their number of clean sheets is pretty poor. I think it's like 4 last year, maybe. And
Fulham, that is, sorry.
Yeah, Fulham, yeah.
Yeah, I think they've kept 6 in the last season and a half now. It's a long
really
time.
It's really not good.
Which is weird because the underlying data is good.
Yeah, but I think for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be quite happening for them. I just don't know whether, because basically this comes down to Woltemade in a 4.x or Ndiaye at 6.5 and Calvert-Lewin.
2 penalty takers versus 0 penalty takers. What about that?
Yeah. But for one game,
yeah.
And the structure just looks better to me. Like, you've got more flexibility with the 3-4-3, I think, rather than the 3-5-2. And I'm a 3-5-2 ultra. I love 3-5-2. But I do think that the possibility. So say it goes the other way, and it turns out that Isaac or even Ekatike is the man to own. You end up the opposite problem, don't you? If you've gone with Calvert-Lewin, I just don't know. I just don't think that it needs to be. I'm not saying it's a driving factor, but I don't think you need to weight it as highly. Potentially, I'm sure you've probably already thought about this, but it would be one of those things that I just think that the team at the moment. I know that Woltemade, you don't like him as much, but it feels like a bit of a kind of, it's almost like a win now pick while he's in kind of a nice sort of spot of form in inverted commas. It feels like we might as well just go with him and see where it goes. And if it doesn't work out, then you've got like a decent little piggy bank there to kind of go back to 3-5-2 if you need to. You've got Ndiaye, you've got Minte, you've got options if you do want to move it back, but you've got the depth as well in the team. You play Anderson, and next week you can play Rodon. Game week 10, Anderson comes into very good fixtures. Starts with Wolves at home, doesn't it? And then a couple of good games at Everton defensively, and the Sunderland at home in 12. So you've got the depth to kind of just roll it on. I just think that in terms of what it looks like right now, because that is still going to be a consideration for your wild card. Right now, I do think having I do think the team of Voltemade makes more sense to me, especially because Ndai's straight away got City, so you wouldn't be playing him. You would be playing Calvert-Lewin, wouldn't you, straight away?
Yeah,
I think.
I would. But it's Burnley though, isn't it? So it's not terrible.
It's not terrible, no. But Burnley last year were in this sort of game. I know I'm obviously completely aware that they've lost CJ again, Riley, they've lost Trafford. But there's in this sort of game, they tend to do all right. I'm not expecting very much to happen in that game.
Yeah, it could just be a flat 0-0.
Blah blah blah. It could be a bit of a boring 1-1. Goals from Cullen and Longstaff, who you've sold for Calvert-Lewin. But I feel like it's one of those games where you're like, okay, I've got to have an asset in it. But it's one of those games that really is not going to be the be all and end all for your week. Whereas I just feel I'd fancy the short term win now, basically, of going with Voltemade and then taking it from there. Because I mean, if you look at FPL.team and roll it on until game week 10, which is next time, you're going to need to make a transfer of this squad, I think, and just obviously assuming touch wood everything's all right. You've then got an ability to get to Isaac if you need to, right? So yeah.
Isak's only ever 2 transfers away, no matter what balance I go with, really, because the 2 spots that you'd move are Saka and Voltemade, or in the other draft, again, you could just look at moving Saka and whoever the other player is, or João Pedro, if the timing is right on that one. So Isak isn't too problematic if he ends up being the Liverpool pick I want. I do think it is very likely that it's going to be Salah at that point. So I don't want to give myself a really tough task of getting there. With this draft, obviously downgrading Voltemade gets me a lot of the way there. I'd also have to downgrade 1 or 2 others, but it's doable if I have those transfers spare. With the other draft, it's a little bit, if anything, more complicated, I think, because Calvert-Lewin would only go down another 1.2 million. I'd still need to find another 3.5 to get Saka up to Salah.
With this one, you can kind of just roll through, right? But with the other one, you've basically brought yourself into a booked-in transfer situation, because either rationally, because you've got to kind of free the money up, or emotionally because you hate Calvert-Lewin's guts, you're gonna have to make a transfer at some point. Whereas with the other one, that feels more sort of like, all right, if something were, God, obviously hoping it wouldn't, but if something happened to me, and I was incapacitated for a couple of weeks, I'd be more than happy with that team for the next 4. Like, I don't know, it's always nice to look a bit further ahead, but over the next 4, my wager would be that Team A, the one with Voltemade in it, probably performs a little bit better than Team B. But we are talking about a couple of edge pieces here. And I'm trying to talk you away from Calvert-Lewin because I just don't want you to go through the emotional strife that you went through last year. So
the problem with last year is I played him every bloody week, and it was like 10 weeks on the bounce where he blanked. So that's not happening this time, no matter what. It's a purely bench boost play. And then it's either get rid or he can rot on my bench. And at 5.5, he's cheap enough to do that.
You've got 0.4 invested in a Longstaff, which is over what you want to be spending. With Calvert-Lewin, you've got 1.2 invested in him if you want to do something. So I don't know. You've always got a little bit more that you got to do. And I don't know. I'm not buying I'm not saying you're saying this, of course, but I'm not buying the prevailing kind of narrative that I seem to be kind of in my limited takes now on looking at FPLX, or what I'm hearing, that the forwards are all busted flushes. Like I do think there's probably going to be another one. And I think Voltemade is as good a bet as any. It could be, that Thiago ends up being quite a decent kind of pickup after their fixtures get better after international break. It could be that, as I said, Ekitike or Isak after the next 4 weeks positions themselves as being as good as Salah in terms of the value of Salah. We can't kind of underplay the extent to which that is such a massive budget sink, especially if you are keeping Haaland around. And let's not forget that Haaland and Man City's fixtures at the same time as Liverpool's become very good. They have the same swing. So okay, owning Haaland and Salah probably might end up being the desirable way to go. but there's going to be another option. There's always, if you're in the situation where you've got, as I said, an orchestra without a conductor, there's always some people may go for the flute player. You can go for the timpani player and probably do all right. So, I don't. Hard to say right now, but I thought with Man City, it's cut and dried. You see, I think Haaland at the price makes a lot of sense, right? With Liverpool, I don't think anyone can say with any confidence that when we get to game week 12, I think it is, when they play Nottingham Forest, that you're going to be kind of saying, I'm definitely going to be getting Salah. I think that probably means that you can feel a bit better about just saving yourself a bit of strife. Just play Longstaff on the bench boost, and then just forget about it. Then it's 0.4 lost from the rest of your net investable value in your playing assets versus having to spend a transfer to then free up the 1.2. So it's like free transfer plus kind of better flexibility with the 3-4-3. I think I'd just be looking at that really, but yeah, just see how you go. I mean, I think either of them is eminently defensible. Honestly, I think just instinctively, not because I hate Calvert-Lewin, just instinctively, I prefer the 3-4-3.
Yeah, fair. I'm not missing any strikers under 7.2, am I? There's not really anything there. I can't afford Bowen, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd probably be tempted to go there. Wish I had better team value, but I'm not. There's not a combination here I'm missing where I can downgrade someone to get to Bowen instead. I don't think there is.
No,
so,
it's only It's like I think it's only Woltemade and Thiago I have any interest in beyond that. I know people will be like, "Oh, I really like Evan Nilsson," but all I'd say is just watch him play and come back and tell me. If you could afford Nateta, obviously that would be kind of ideal world scenario. I don't think there's any way you can make 0.3 there, is there? Unless you don't go with Senesi and go with Diakite or Truffert, or maybe go with a Sunderland asset over Anderson, which might be something that's worth thinking about. But their fixtures do get a lot worse going forward, don't they?
Yeah, and they have had favourable fixtures so far. So I'm a bit given I've already got one promoted striker at 4 million in my defence, and there seems to be good value in defence. I don't know. I don't feel confident enough yet going with 2 4s right now. That might be something I revisit later on down the line, though. I wouldn't rule that out. It could be interesting and there could be value there, but I think I need to see more on Sunderland given the fixtures before going there. And I do really like Anderson as well. I think he'll tick along just fine. So yeah. I also maybe it's just because I've had Longstaff as a player in the back of my mind for quite a while that I've almost gotten a bit bored of seeing him in my team, and I start thinking he's actually just not that worth it. And that, is that fifth midfielder? I'm quite excited by the idea of keeping Ndai or having Minter on a wild card, but I don't know whether that's actually better than just having Woltemade instead of Calvert-Lewin. It might just be Woltemade and Longstaff as the combination, and it's a clearer 3-4-3 every single week at that point, I guess, rather than worrying.
That feeds into it as well for me. Even though you've got a bench boost to play it at 9. Up that you've got Minter does then come into the equation when you've got a couple more transfers in game week 10 potentially if you want to do that. You've got less benching worries really if you're kind of saying, right, okay, Longstaff, Rodon and Anderson end up as your bench guys. The rest of it sort of picks itself every week, and it's just it's a very, very flipping solid 11. There's not really any button right now that I can kind of feed into that. Maybe you could say, well, doesn't own Reinders, lol, but I mean, there really are tangential things, aren't they? So I kind of prefer this one. Longstaff, as you said, so on set pieces as well, as Simon said last week, making that sort of Longstaff run, all that sort of thing. In a 1 week scenario, assuming you are going to bench boost in game week 9, the game against West Ham as well on a Friday at Ellen Road, why not? Have a great fun in enjoying that one while kind of being safe in knowledge that you then got Woltemade at 3 p.m. on the Saturday against Fulham, who are very kind of generous to strikers, and that's at home as well. So I don't know. I even though I appreciate what you're saying about them being on pens and the other two, I just feel better going into that week not owning Calvert-Lewin. I mean, not relying on having Woltemade and Longstaff. I think just about. It really is horses for courses. It really is a few small little bits. And if it's your eighth attacker, even for someone you dislike, the one transfer that you probably will have to make add on to that does make me think that can be a bit of a kind of a kicker, in poker. That can be like the kicker that can make me just think, all right, I'm just gonna go for the 3-4-3, because the 3-4-3 at the moment we just don't. There's so many uncertain things at the moment that defaulting for a 3-4-3 makes a lot of sense, or a 4-4-3 makes a lot of sense as well to a lot of people. So, yeah. That'd be the way I look at it anyway, Sam. But yeah, whatever you do, I'm sure it will be incredibly well reasoned and stress tested. And
overthought, I think, is the word.
Yeah.
This would be, I think, my very first wildcard draft as well if I stuck with it. So 2 weeks of thinking, and I've just basically, well, actually not quite my first, but the one that I presented last week on this pod. So yeah, 2 full weeks of thinking, and I've just come back round in a circle to finish up on what I started with. Poetic in a way. Do we waste our time with FPL? Quite possibly.
Yeah, but it stops us getting into other trouble, doesn't it? So there you go.
It does. Right. Well, thank you so much, mate, for bearing with me whilst I walk through my wildcard. I do really appreciate it, and hopefully you've all enjoyed listening in as well. And if you have done so, we'd really appreciate it if you could drop a like and hit subscribe on YouTube if you're watching along live. 5-star review wherever you're listening as well would be greatly appreciated. In the meantime, we have been Who Got the Assist. You can find us on Blue Sky at Who Got the Assist, all written out one word, or FPL Pricey for me. On X, WGTA_FPL, FPL Pricey for me as well. And on YouTube, well, if you're watching it already, you don't need to know. But if you're not, it's WGTA_FPL. And I'm over on YouTube at FPL Pricey as well. Like I said, if you could leave a like, hit subscribe, and give the pod a 5-star rating wherever you're listening, that'd be greatly appreciated. And of course, we'll see you next week as always. And fingers crossed for wildcard, eh?
Yes, fingers crossed for wildcard, dear me. What can we even say? Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. It was just you get back into the FPL groove. Back next week, see how Sam got on with his wildcard. If he actually did get Dominic Calvert-Lewin, reveal if I did actually manage to roll, and so on. Have a good week, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.